Hello everybody, welcome to our latest video on YouTube here at Greenwood Bonsai Studio. When we started doing these videos a few weeks ago, one of the first videos we did, we called it Winter Exhibition Part 1, and we brought a selection of trees in to show you in their winter guise with no leaves on. And it was one of our first videos we did when we were just starting out, and we want to make this into a series of videos. So we're going to now do Part 2 Spring Exhibition. And we're going to concentrate on acers, maples, this time. Usually here, about this time, middle of May, we have a maple weekend where we have demonstrations, lectures, and a beautiful exhibit and display of specimen Polymartin bonsai. Obviously with this year, we've still got a few COVID restrictions in place. We're not able to do that as a live event here at our nursery in Nottingham. So we thought what we'll do is instead, we'll bring some trees in and we'll show you just a selection of the trees that you would be able to see if we had put that event on and if you were able to come to it. And by all means, next year, if all goes well, we'll be doing this event again in May. So this will give you a little taster and perhaps tempt you to visit next year when we hold this event. Those of you that have been here before and have spoke to me in the past, you'll know that I've got a particular liking for Japanese maple Polymartin. And in particular, a lot of the different cultivars of Polymartin. Some are quite hard to find, and it's took me over 30 years to build up a collection of trees to represent Japanese maple. So if I can just talk you through some of them, I want to tell you a little bit about the tree. We'll reference back to show you some photos of how they've developed, and we'll tell you a little bit about the pot and a brief history of them. So we'll do a little walk through of today's exhibition. This first one here is Polymartin Arakawa. This did feature in our Part 1 winter exhibition. So if you check that video out on our channel, you'll see this not in leaf. It is a winter image tree because it has beautiful craggy bark. That is a rough bark Japanese maple. It's just come into leaf in the last few weeks. Quite a long petiole on the Arakawa leaf, so it always looks a little bit shaggy in appearance. Just an orange edge to the green leaf at the moment. This is in a beautiful handmade pot by Gordon Duffett in a smoky blue crackle glaze. And this crackle glaze it picks up and emulates the texture of the bark on this tree. It suits it much better. This photograph here is when I first bought this tree, and it was in a very dark blue pot. A high quality Japanese pot, but to me, the glaze lacked any depth and texture, so it didn't harmonise with the tree as well as this one does. This next tree is an Polymartin Mikawa Yatsubutsu. It's a dwarf cultivar of Japanese maple. You can sometimes find young plants of these in nurseries and garden centres. And I've owned this tree for about 5 years or so. And here's a photograph of when I first purchased this tree. You can see over the last few years, it's developed considerably. I've wired this tree on a couple of occasions to shape the branches. I've worked on the roots to get a better base and nabari to the tree. This is its spring colour, beautiful bright green leaf on a Mikawa Japanese maple. And this is planted into a handmade pot by my stepmother, Petra Engelka Tomlinson. And the green colour, the mottled tones in this pot look so nice against the bright green spring leaf. It's also gives a really nice display of orange and red in autumn. Here's a photograph of it in autumn colour. It's also a very good time of year to display this tree. This next one is unusual for bonsai. You don't see many. It's an Polymartin Cereal. It's a more common variety that you can find at garden centres and nurseries to plant in the garden, but it's very rarely seen as bonsai. This was originally imported from Japan. I've owned this tree for almost 20 years. It's in a pot by Petra again, Beautiful handmade pot that looks like a moonlit sky. Very pale bark, beautiful foliage. And this tree again in autumn, very, very nice to display in autumn. Here's a photograph of it in autumn from a couple of years ago, so you can see what I mean. This next one is an old favourite, Polymartin Shojo Maple. You don't have to look long at Japanese maples in books and on the internet to see reference to Shojo Maple. This is an old, mature specimen imported from Japan a few years ago and owned by myself. It's got a very mature branching on this tree. It's in a beautiful Japanese handmade pot, lovely blue and green tones to this pot, striking contrast with the spring leaf on the Shojo Maple. Really a firm favourite with many of our customers and many bonsai enthusiasts throughout the world. This next one is a Polymartin Uconn. We did a video last week that featured this group, so if you haven't already seen that video, just check out our channel and check out our other videos. We've done a video all about this group. It tells you the history about it. Briefly, for those of you that haven't seen that video, this was a much larger composition of more trees that my father, Harry Tomlinson, placed together 40 years ago. And the trees were 10 years old when they were put together. So these trees are 50-year-old. They've been together as a group for 40 years. And I recently split the group up into smaller segments and some individual trees. And I've placed these together as this group. And then I did another group with the 7 remaining trees. So this is about 2/3 of an existing group. And 8 weeks ago, I repositioned these trees, recreated this group for the next 40 years. In a handmade Chinese pot, beautiful mottled glaze, very nice, sort of green, grey, smoky diffused glaze. It looks very nice with the bright spring foliage. Now this next one is sneaked into this exhibition a little bit. It's the odd one out in the fact that it's not an Polymartin Japanese maple. It's a trident maple, Bulgarianum. Very, very heavy trunk tree, imported from Japan a number of years ago. It's been in my collection for about 5 to 6 years now. Here's a photograph when I first purchased this tree. And you'll notice that when I first purchased it, I used the other side as the front, and then over the years I've developed it more and I've made this side the front of the tree. In a very old Japanese tokoname pot. It's a beautiful tree. When I first saw this tree on sale, there was quite a crowd of people around it admiring it, and I stood there among those crowd of people. And I see a lot of trees. I get offered a lot of trees to purchase, and this one really struck me. And till this day, I haven't seen another one similar to it at all. Just the squatness of it and the diameter of this trunk. I call it, I refer to it as a Mount Fuji trident because of the shape of the trunk. Now this next one is probably one of my favourite trees for bonsai. This is a Polymartin Shishidoshira, one of my favourite cultivars for bonsai use. And I was very lucky to purchase this tree in Japan at the World Bonsai Convention. It was held about 4 years ago or so. And I purchased this tree in Japan, and it was imported here to the UK. In a handmade pot, beautiful pot, really matches the tones and the mottled bark. Very nice base nibari on this tree. Beautiful foliage on the Shishidoshira. And as you know, if you're familiar with these trees, beautiful autumn colour on these also. And this next one at the end is a little bit special. And this is a Polymartin Darseptum Atropaperium. It's a cut leaf, purple Japanese maple. And this tree belonged to my father, and we've known this tree for about 55 years. It featured in his book, The Complete Book of Bonsai. And if you look on the Japanese maple page, here it is here. This photograph was taken 30 years ago. And the tree started off as a very young grafted tree that my father bought from just a general store when he was much younger. And it was about 20 years old by the time it was photographed here. And it always had a main trunk, and as it went up, it split into two, and those two trunks crossed over, which generally is an attribute you're not really wanting to look for in bonsai, but some reason it managed to get away with it and pull it off. It's quite a graceful tree. This photograph was in 1988. Unfortunately, some years after this, it fell off the bench in high winds and the whole side of the tree snapped off. So these two trunks on the upper section just became one. And then this one trunk has been grown, and over the last 5 to 6 years, I've been shaping and styling this tree to get the shape back into it and to make a new composition out of this tree. And last year, I was very lucky to purchase this Japanese part. I've been looking for a handmade Japanese part of this sort of design, of this colour and this size. And I managed to locate this pot at a show and purchase it to suit this tree. The tree just fits in. If this pot was ½ an inch smaller, I wouldn't get the tree in, because these roots come right to the edge here and right to the edge here. It's been living in this pot for a year now, and the tone of the pot, the delicacy, the feminine shape of this pot really goes nicely with the feathery, delicate nature of this tree. I hope you've enjoyed this spring maple exhibition. Like I say, we're going to try and make this a series, and every so often during the year we're going to bring a few trees in and just talk away through them. And we might show you the same trees, so you see the same trees at different times of year. We might bring some different ones in to mix it up a little bit. If you haven't checked out part 1 of our mini exhibition, then have a look back through our back catalogue and check that out. And thank you very much.